Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning.
Hello there, and welcome back to Last Library on the Left. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Sadina. We're a horror review and discussion podcast where we talk about horror in books, movies, and other formats, why we seek it out, and why we need it in our lives.
So today we will be talking about the 2014 mockumentary, What We Do in the Shadows, and the TV series, What We Do in the Shadows, which premiered in 2019.
Really? Did it premiere that short ago?
Yeah.
Wow. Man, they pumped that out fast.
Yeah. So here are the credits for the mockumentary. Directed by Jermaine Clement, Taika Waititi. Produced by Taika Waititi, Chelsea Winstanley, and Emmanuel Michael. Starring Jermaine Clement as Vlad, Taika Waititi as Viago, Jonathan Brew as Deacon, Corey Gonzalez Macure, as Nick, Stu Rutherford as Stu, Ben Francham as Peter, Jackie Van Beek as Jackie, and Reese Darby as Anton. So What We Do in the Shadows is literally a mockumentary reality show about a group of vampires as they adjust to... In the mockumentary, they're not in the...
I don't even think they're Australia. I think they're New Zealand.
Yeah, they're New Zealand because Viago has the wrong postage when he was falling. We didn't write any notes, so we'll see how this episode plays out.
Yeah, this is going to be more of a discussion, y'all, because I've seen the mockumentary now 4 or 5 times, and within just the last 2 years, so I felt pretty strong in my recall. I didn't take notes. But also, y'all, it's really hard to take notes on the mockumentary because everything happens so fast.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're constantly pausing to write notes, you're kind of losing the momentum.
Yeah. When I first started watching this show, I was writing notes, and then I forgot because I just got into the show. So that's why I have no notes. The show premiered in 2019. It was adapted by Jermaine Clement, and it stars Natasha Demetriou as Nadja. Fabulous female.
The best.
Yeah. Kayvon Novak as Nandor. Matt Berry as Laszlo. Harvey Guillen as Guillermo. Mark Proksch as Colin Robinson. And our fave, Doug Jones, as the Baron. And this has become the Doug Jones podcast.
Yes, it has become the Doug Jones podcast, which I forgot was going to be the post for today. So when I saw it, I was like, what the? Oh, right.
Yeah. He's everywhere.
Yes. I liked all the screen grabs you caught, though.
Yeah, really I was mad that I didn't get the amphibian man in there. I realized it too late, and I was like, oh, well, it is what it is.
Don't worry about it. Speaking of, did you know that Nadine says that she said she read a Reddit article that says that Shape of Water is Abe Sapien's origin story?
What?
Yes! That Guillermo del Toro said yes. And I was like, well, send me the article. And of course, it's a Reddit article, so Nadine had no clue where the fuck it was. But I was like, wait, really? Because she was like, yeah, because Abe Sapien was found in South America, so was the amphibian man. And I was like, oh, poor Jennifer, I told her she was wrong, because I'm going off the comics by, I was like, oh, okay, maybe she was right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta watch Shape of Water and then Hellboy and just keep going.
Yeah, back to back.
Ooh.
Yeah. I know, because visually, he does look different.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe he learns to talk. I don't know. But Nadine said she found a Reddit article and she was like, yeah.
Oh, see, now we need to see the continuation of Shape of Water because, oh, God. Okay.
I know.
We're getting off track. But I need to go on Reddit.
Yeah, because Gasper thought the same thing. He was saying that he thought that Shape of Water was Abe Sapien's origin story.
What?
And so I told him about Nadine saying the Reddit artitle.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I probably could have found it if I had Googled it, but...
I mean, I'm gonna go on Reddit the minute I get home and I'm gonna look. I've been telling myself no Reddit because that's what I like to do. And today I'm breaking that rule.
But it's for research.
It's for research purposes. As it always is. Okay, back to What We Do in the Shadows. So, brief rundown of the characters. For the mockumentary, Peter is the patriarch, and he turned everyone.
I thought that Peter only turned Deacon, because Deacon was selling his wares.
Yeah.
And then Peter turned Deacon
Yeah.
and Nick, but I don't think we find out.
I don't think we find out about Viago. I just assumed.
Well, and Deacon's the youngest one. So the others were turned long before, but I think that maybe Peter's just living with them because he's Deacon's maker.
Did he change Vlad too? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Okay, but Peter is a patriarch, and we rarely see him anyways. Viago, his little backstory was he was in love with a girl, and she was moving, so he wanted to follow her, but his familiar used the wrong postage.
And it took him 18 months! Oh my god. I mean, in all honesty, though, he's lucky he got there.
Yeah.
Because, like, the wrong postage usually means that you ain't getting where you need to go.
Deacon is the youngest. And
At
I wrote,
what, 200 or 300 years old is what it was.
Yeah. And I wrote down that his familiar was Jackie. And then Vlad is somewhere in there. And Vlad can't transform fully. His powers were hindered after an encounter with the beast. You'll get why we're laughing later. And then Nick is the newest vampire, and he's got a rivalry with Deacon because, you know, he's the new cool kid in town.
Right, the young one.
Yeah.
The new one, the hipster of the group.
Yeah.
He even steals his jacket. Oh my god.
And then there's Stu, who is Nick's friend, but everyone loves Stu.
Yeah, I
love Stu.
do too. I really like Stu. There are times when watching it when Nick is doing the mind control thing on him and he's like, oh, he's not listening now. Yeah. But sometimes I'm like, but is Stu listening? Because he's so laid back and chill. Nothing phases him. Yeah. And I was like, but maybe he does know. And he's just like, y'all are bros, so he doesn't care.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, he just goes with the flow. So I didn't write anything down as far as summary because there's no need to summarize it. It's literally them just going through their lives as vampires in the modern world.
Right. And the whole point that the documentary crew is following them is to see them in the year building to the unholy masquerade and to see how their lives are as they prepare for it and everything. Although, okay, well, we'll talk about that later when we get to that. But yeah, I really like the movie. Okay, so story time. I think I've already told you this, but the reason I watched the movie in the very first time, because I'd never heard of it before, I was going through Tumblr or something and came across like a Foursquare fan art of my absolute guilty pleasure, Teen Wolf. I don't care. I don't care what y'all think, but I really, really like Teen Wolf.
We love Teen Wolf in this podcast.
Yes, it is. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a little 4-panel and it's Scott and Isaac are yelling at Peter probably because Peter is a psychopath. And Isaac yells the F word maybe. And Scott turns on him and he goes, Isaac, what have I said? And Isaac says, we're werewolves, not swearwolves. And I remember thinking, did that line happen in the show? Because that sounds like something that would be said in the show. It's so weird. And so I did research and it was from this movie. And I was like, well, now I absolutely have to watch this movie and see why that line is there. Because I love it.
Yeah. And that was my introduction of What We Do in the Shadows is this story. Because I'd seen it and I've heard people talk about it and I think they won an award for it. They were either nominated because I saw it somewhere in some award show because my mom likes to watch award shows, y'all, so I watch it with it. And so I had knowledge of it, but I was like, that's not my cup of tea. I'm not going to enjoy that.
Yeah, like what? The Office meets Interview with the Vampire?
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, Sadina's telling me that quote where we're werewolves, not swearwolves is what drew me in.
And it's so perfect because it's such a one-off. When it happens, you're like, there it is! But the rest of the movie is also absolutely worth it.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from one of the wolves, I think it was Anton, he says it. They're meeting the vampires and they're getting upset.
Yeah, all riled up.
Yeah, they're getting ready to turn and he goes, do the breathing, count to 10, human again.
Can I just say that Rhys Darby and everything else I've ever seen him in, when I first saw him in the movie, and he clearly was the alpha of the pack, I was like, but really? Rhys Darby? And don't get me wrong, I really like Rhys Darby. He's very funny, and I watch everything he's in when I get the chance. But he was the alpha of the pack, and I was like, okay, I guess. Yeah.
That was what my thought when I saw Taika as sort of like the head of household. I was like, okay.
But he's more like the house mom.
Right,
so
yeah.
Like,
he's more like the house mom. And I think it's just because no one wants to be head of household there.
Ain't that the truth? So
he has to. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, because they let the dishes go for 5 years before bringing it up at a house meeting. Oh my god.
And they're literal bloody dishes.
Yeah.
Like, can't with this show.
I think it took the second time watching it before I got the linguistic joke there. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I get, because bloody's part of your vernacular.
Yeah. So that's like in the show where Nandor says something about the humans are half drunk. And at first I thought... At first I was like, wait, they didn't drink it. They were like, oh, wait, no, they drank half of them already. You gotta be quick with this show.
Yes, you really do, because Taika Waititi, he is such a linguistic master.
Yeah.
I think that's why Thor Ragnarok did as well as it did.
Oh, definitely one of my faves in all of the Marvel.
Same,
Yeah.
because he's a mastermind when it comes to direction, but just the fast flash in there, it's gone banter.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So brilliant. We don't deserve him.
We don't deserve him, but I'm glad he's around.
Yes, me too.
One of my other favorite parts is, I think Vlad's just talking about them having to hunt, but he says, we are the baits, but also the trap. And then they flash to a fashion montage where they're all trying on outfits.
That fashion montage is way less awkward than the Dance of the Seven Veils.
Oh my god.
That Deacon does. I was like, oh, please, God, stop. Just
He didn't stop.
No. But why? This can't be your entertainment, y'all.
I mean, they've been around for centuries. What else are they gonna do?
Weird. But Stu had taught them how to use the computer.
That was hilarious when they saw the sunrise on YouTube. It was such a good show.
All those little moments.
Yeah. One of the things that I told Sadina, because we had recorded this previously, because we were gonna, I think this is gonna be episode 2 originally.
Yeah, it was meant to be, the recording was so bad though.
Yeah. And I told Sadina that I've always been obsessed with vampires. I've romanticized them in my head. And this took away all of that romanticism real quick. Because they were so awkward. Walking down the street waiting to be invited to a club.
Yeah. Although that was one of my favorite scenes. Not them per se, but when they were talking about the different hunting tactics.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the 2 girls.
Yes.
And they were like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go like hunt and kill a pedophile. And they're like, alright, cool, have a good night. Bye.
And then you pan back later and they've gotten one.
But it really was like 2 groups of friends meeting. Oh, are you guys going to this club? Yeah, we're gonna go. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Talking murder.
Yeah.
It was so good.
So let's talk about the Beast for a little bit. Because I had no prior knowledge of this show, I'll tell you guys. So when Vlad was talking about he can't transform fully, and by that I mean he's literally like a bat with his head.
Yeah, like when they were chasing Nick before he got turned, he turns into a cat, the black cat, but he's hissing and it's just his face on the body of a black cat.
Yeah. You just say, what the hell? So he's like, his powers were hindered after an encounter with a beast, and they show these images, and I'm like, okay, so what kind of beast was it? Turns out it was his ex-girlfriend.
Because the whole time he's telling you about the beast, he fought it in all these different places across time and tore him apart and changed him and took something from him. And turns out it's just his ex emasculated him. Yeah. That's all it was.
And then they meet at
the Unholy Masquerade.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he looked really good.
Yeah, he looks really good.
It was very Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
It almost looked like that's where most of their budget went.
Yeah. No real budget for the rest of the film.
No.
Yeah, because they did do the costumes up really nice that last scene.
Mm-hmm. Which had some of my favorite in-jokes, too, like the zombie.
Oh my god.
Where he was talking about how they shouldn't shuffle because, you know, it's degrading, and how they should walk, they shouldn't have their arms up like that, like the Thriller move, and then he did it, and he, like, put him down, and so good. So the Unholy Masquerade, my biggest problem with the Unholy Masquerade scene is that it takes them forever to figure out that Stu is a human, but then all of a sudden they're like, oh, but also there's this camera crew that's been here the whole night, and now we have a problem with it. I know. That was so weird.
I kept thinking, I was like, wait a minute, the camera crew, they weren't paranormal? Yeah. Because that was my whole thought the whole time.
Oh no, they mentioned in the very beginning they gave the camera crew crosses.
Oh. I don't know why I ignored that part.
I mean, that's fair, because the Unholy Masquerade does make that scene a little weird.
Yeah.
Because there's times I think that, I believe there's even a scene where Pauline is kind of makes eye contact with the camera, you know, when she first comes over to swagger and show off because she's the guest of honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that very weird, because then all of a sudden they're like, you've broken all the rules by bringing humans, and it's like, okay.
But did you not know? They were talking to the camera crew and stuff. Like, did you not know that the camera crew were human? Or just a plot hole that they didn't describe well. But it was still really funny.
It was still really funny. Poor Stu.
I love Stu. I loved how they love Stu. Like, they took to Stu so quickly, and they just loved him.
Yeah, even Nick is like, I think they like Stu better than they like me.
Yeah.
Because he's confiding in Peter.
Yeah.
It's such a sweet, well, not father figure, but sort of.
Yeah. That's kind of gross when you think about it, because he made him. But whatever. Yeah. Like, I can't get it out of my head now, thanks. I can't not see that. Let me take a moment to relax.
Although, let's be honest, Peter's a much better creator to have than literally anyone else in that house.
Yeah. Although, I don't know. I might like Taika to be my creator.
He's so fussy, though.
He's so fussy.
So fussy. He was talking about them not putting newspaper down to protect the furniture. And they're like, what, your red couch? And he was like, yeah, it's red now.
He's such a mom.
And then he did put down newspaper and it didn't help.
It didn't help him. Oh, but I loved him so much. He's so funny. And when he finally gets to meet his long-lost love...
Who he's stalking, by the way.
Does he bring a teddy bear to her?
Oh, I thought he brought her flowers. Maybe it was a teddy bear.
I can't remember. He brought her something.
Yeah. That was a really cute scene, though. It was like Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Where he like has his hands up in the thrill and he's slowly gliding across and then he has the gift in his hands.
Yeah.
That was really cute.
And I liked how they were talking about the age difference. Because she's obviously an old woman by now. And he's like, talking about, the age is nothing. It doesn't matter. And it's like, she knows that I'm centuries years old. I was like, oh, that's not where I expected that to go.
Yeah, he was like, people may call me a cradle robber, but...
Yeah. Oh man, this movie was just full of fun moments.
Yeah.
They did poke fun at, I think, a lot at the typical, like, vampire tropes. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I was like, this doesn't make sense, was how they couldn't see their reflections.
But they could see the things they were holding and not their clothes.
Yeah.
That was weird.
And then how they showed up in pictures.
Yes.
That's another plot hole.
So, you know how Viago had the silver necklace?
Yeah.
That his partner had given him? But some of those photos are so old, they're silverback printed photos.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say, theoretically, in vampire lore, silver is a pure metal, and it's seen as kind of a heavenly metal, and it can't be touched by the likes of vampires and things like that, and werewolves. Then it shouldn't be able to capture their image either.
Right. I didn't get it, because I was like, the silver thing I don't get. So there were a lot of moments where I was just like, they didn't read as many vampire books as I did, obviously. But I mean, it was still really funny.
It was still a great movie. Oh my god, when they first made the werewolf pack, and what was it? Deacon pretended to throw a stick, and one of the pack goes to run after, and Reese is like, no, he didn't actually throw it. Yeah. And the guy still looks confused. He's like, huh, what?
It's so funny. They just, when you need a break from horror, this is the show to watch. Because, like, it was so funny. I laughed from beginning to end. And I remember watching it with my sister. My sister, like, hates horror. And she's like, this show is so stupid. And I was like, but it's so funny.
So I rewatched it recently with my friend Sarah. And we were watching it together. And there were lots of scenes that are scenes almost directly taken from older classic horror movies too, but vampire horror movies, like the Nosferatu, where he's like, moving like that. But also there's a scene where Peter, it's just a scene and it seems really out of place, but it's the two windows in the house and Peter's walking by them really slowly. Yeah. And I was like, why does that look familiar? And Sarah said she thinks it's from one of the old Dracula movies.
Oh. Yeah. Wow.
So Sarah and I spent some of the time watching it, pointing out different scenes that, especially the silent ones where there was no action anywhere, they were kind of direct scenes from other vampire movies. I think she said there was even a Twilight one, which it was probably one of the ones where Viago was stalking his ex, but I never watched those movies, so I don't know.
So see, and I thought the Twilight shout out was from the show because Nandor wanted glitter on something.
Oh, yeah.
There's a shout out to Twilight.
That's true. Maybe that was the one. I don't know. It's such a good movie.
It's such a good movie. And at the end, when Stu gets turned into the werewolf, I was like, yes! Because there was a moment where Stu got attacked, and you're like, oh my god. I was like, don't make me cry, this funny show.
Really thought he was dead.
Me too! And I was like, I can't believe Sadina made me watch this. Like, I was really mad. And then when he turned to him, I was like, okay, it's okay.
All the cops, oh my god, they're so dumb because they like, these animal attacks are out of control. And they bring this sweet looking collie, and they're like, look at this face, it's the face of a killer. And I was like, poor little baby is just like, I don't know what's happening. Poor little pup.
Oh man. Now I'm confusing the movie and the show. Because in the movie, the cops come in and they're using the glamour, right? And,
okay. Yeah, because so when Nick first gets turned, he tells everybody. Yeah. Everywhere they go. He's telling everybody he's a vampire. He's like, that Twilight? I'm the Twilight. Which I thought was such a dumb way to put it. But absolutely how Nick would put it. Yeah. So he runs into some guy and he's like, yeah, I'm a vampire. And the guy goes, really? I'm a vampire hunter. And Nick's like, ha ha, yeah. And he leaves. And I remember watching it the first time going, oh, that would suck if that guy's really a vampire hunter. Because he looks kind of serious. And then it turns out he was a vampire hunter and followed Nick back to the house, breaks into the sub-basement where Peter sleeps, breaks the table, Peter wakes up, and the sun is out, and Peter dies, but not before killing the guy. It was just really sad because Nick had basically kind of helped his creator die, and but that's why the cops showed up, because it was Peter being on fire that someone reported flames. And every time that one of the cops was like, wait, do you see that? And there'd be that moment where everybody's like, oh my god, what exactly are they looking at, because there's a lot wrong here. And they're like, old rags piled up next to an old electrical outlet. That's a fire hazard. And they're like, no wonder you had a fire here. And I was like, that is absolutely the problem in this scene.
Didn't they look up at one point and say, you have no fire alarm?
And who was it? Deacon's up in like the corner.
Right, because they just had their big vampire fight.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And they think that the vampire hunter who's passed out, like, is dead. But they think he's passed out drunk on the floor. And they're like, that's not comfortable. His head is turned all the way around. Because Peter had turned his head completely 180. And they're like, he's going to wake up. His neck's going to be killing him. They're like, you should really bring him upstairs. Oh my gosh. And they're like, yeah, we'll think about that.
I mean, for real, I thought vampires were so smart and so cunning, and these ones were just not.
And I definitely thought the glamour was going to wear off, because Viago tells you, he's like, I'm not good at it. It can wear off at any point. And I was like, oh no.
It's going to wear off. It's going to wear off. Oh man, it was so good. So funny. So funny.
So before we move on to the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the other human. Well, temporary. Oh, she was also a temporary human.
Yeah.
Because Stu got turned and so did she.
Yeah.
So Deacon's familiar, Jackie, has been his familiar for years. Like 4 or 5 years, she said. And she really wants to be turned. She cleans up all the murder evidence. And
she does everything.
She does everything for him.
Under the promise of becoming a vampire one day.
Yeah, and Deacon's clearly not gonna, he's not gonna do it. And so she gets Nick to turn her. Yeah. And she shows up at the Unholy Masquerade where there's the big showdown between Pauline the Beast and everything. And so, Deacon seemed real hurt that she went behind his back and got turned.
And Nick of all people, right?
Nick of all people. Although I was kind of... Okay, so when I first watched it, I remember there were definitely points where it looked like Jackie was absolutely fed up with his shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, she's gonna fucking kill these guys when they're sleeping. Because that would, in all honesty, that would be my reaction.
I thought Deacon would be dead by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. You're clearly not gonna fall through. I have now implicated myself multiple times over for you. I might as well kill you too. Yeah. What's one extra? And he even comes to her house. Right. She seems like genuinely afraid for her kids and her husband. Yeah. And then instead she just goes and gets turned by Nick. And I was like, I don't think that would have been my choice. I would have at that point been fed up enough with Deacon and the whole concept. Yeah. That I'd be like, no, this is not for me. No.
We're gonna move, kids.
Yeah. I'm gonna kill this nest of vampires and then we're gonna flee.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
But instead she embraced that part that she had worked really hard for, I guess.
Yeah.
No, not my choice, but I guess I get it.
But I love how after she turned and she made her husband her familiar. And she was like a total badass.
She definitely embraced that part of her that I think existed the whole time anyway. She just needed an excuse to be that part.
Yeah. She was so funny. I loved her disdain when she's talking about having to do cleanup after Deacon and do all these things for Deacon and whatever he says. And then when he would compel her to do it, she would just be like, ugh. Mm-hmm. She's all of us.
Yeah, right?
I'm trying to think about some of the other things that happened towards the end. Did Pauline and Vlad get back together? They gave it a shot. Mm-hmm. That's what they gave it a shot. And it didn't work.
No. So, the boyfriend she brought to the Unholy Masquerade, I did not believe that he was a vampire until the very end when they showed him covering or whatever, like vampires.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to sound so stupid, but I thought he was the guy from the Phantom of the Opera. Because his face was all messed up on one side. And I was like, wait, is he supposed to be the guy from the Phantom of the Opera? like the popped collar and like the cape and everything.
I didn't go there. You had a Jennifer thought. That's something that I would think of.
I was convinced of that until he floated and flew, and I was like, oh no, I guess he is a vampire.
Yeah. Which, oh my gosh, the projectile vomiting. That was...
Yeah, when they ate a fry. They were out feeding Stu, and Nick ate a fry, and they were I wouldn't do that if I were you. And Nick goes, why?
And he's like, I love them, they're my favorite food.
It isn't until he throws up after eating a fry that he now thinks of all the downsides to being a vampire. He's like, I can't eat anything anymore, I can't go out in the sun, I was like, bro, you're just thinking about these things?
He was literally an impulsive teenager. Like, that's literally what that was. He's an impulsive teenager.
Yeah, because once he was turned, because the scene with the dancing of the 7 veils, he floated up through the window, and they were like, why didn't you use the door? And he's like, why would I do that when I can fly now? Like, that is the epitome of a teen just getting this type of power. Like, the neighbors could see you.
Right. Nick was hilarious. I think Nick brought a level of comedy that they needed. Because, I mean, it was funny before Nick, but man.
Yeah, Nick, because they kind of sort of stumbled through their existence.
Yeah.
Until Nick was there, and then it was genuine hurdles to being what they were. And they were like, oh no, this is much more difficult.
Because I think they were trying to get Nick to, like, blend in. Like, that's what we do, we blend in.
Yeah, we don't go around telling everyone we're vampires. Why not?
Yeah.
Because then you tell a vampire hunter, and he comes and he kills your master. Right. That's why.
And I love how Stu turned into a werewolf, and Nick was a vampire, and I think that's how they reached their little agreement at the end. Yeah. Because of those two.
Yeah, the vampires and werewolves were sworn enemies.
Yeah.
Until Nick was a vampire and Stu was a werewolf, and then all of a sudden the pack was welcome in the house. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I mean, we like Stu, and if he's part of the pack, I guess.
They had said something before they let them in, though. Oh god, it was something about don't track mud in the house or put some air fresheners up.
Oh yeah, because the smell of wet dog.
Yeah.
Which, okay, that was another thing that I thought was weird, because you never hear or read about vampire lore saying that they have stronger senses.
Yeah.
And I was like, but the smell of wet dog would not be bothering you. That would be your smells would be bothering the werewolves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've only ever read vampire, the lore that I've heard is like strength in sight and hearing, but never smell.
Or, I mean, they can smell if blood is in the air.
Right, but that's about it. They can't smell the garlic on my breath from yesterday, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that was just them being mean.
Oh god, yeah.
Because, yeah, it can't be an actual vampire lore thing.
No. They were just mean.
Yeah.
They were the mean kids to the poor werewolves.
Yeah, I will say, and maybe it's because of Teen Wolf, but I am partial to werewolves and lore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the show, Being Human, I was partial to all the wolves in that one, too.
That's another one that I need to watch that I started a long time ago and I never finished.
Girl, it's good.
So getting back on track, we've digressed.
Way off.
So, what we do in the shadows, this series. So we meet Nadja, Nandor, who is the house mom.
Yeah, he's the house mom.
Yeah, he's the house mom. Laszlo, who is Nadja's partner. Guillermo, who is Nandor's familiar. Colin Robinson, one of my favorite vampires.
Who's also in The Office.
Oh, that's so funny! That is hilarious.
He plays a non-vampire version of basically the same character.
That's even funnier. Listen, between him and Nandor and Nadja, I don't know who's my favorite.
Yeah. So Colin is an emotional vampire. And he doesn't need to drink blood, but he'll drain people of their energy. Yeah. And his whole shtick is that he's the most boring person in the office. He is that person in the office. He'll go on these long monologues, and you literally see people in the show, their shoulders droop, and they're like, oh god, I got stuck talking to him. Yeah. And so when I saw him in this, and I was like, it's just a vampire version of the same guy.
And when they said that the energy vampire is like the most common, I was like, what?
I mean, yeah. I believe it.
So funny. That was probably my favorite take on a vampire.
He looks so pleased when people fall asleep and his eyes glow.
Yeah.
Oh my god. You're like probably the scariest version of a vampire.
And we also meet the Baron, who, as I said, is played by Doug Jones. And the Baron kind of plays almost like a Peter version, where he comes in the beginning and you see him and he gives you some stuff and then he leaves. Or
he just leaves.
He's there in the basement or wherever and you just don't see it. Oh no, he's in the attic this time.
Oh, that's right, he is in the attic
he's
this
in
time.
The attic,
and this takes place in Jersey this time?
Staten Island.
Staten Island, right.
Yeah, because they're taking over Staten Island.
Yeah, right. I knew it was somewhere around New York.
And so for this one, I just picked out a couple of my favorite episodes because it was so funny, but I had to pick out the favorites. So my first favorite episode is season 1, episode 8, where Nandor goes to get his citizenship, his American citizenship. And it's because he's found out that his birth country has long since been decimated, forgotten, built on.
Yeah, reabsorbed or something.
So he wants to get his American citizenship. Why? Because he followed the American Olympic team in the 90s. That's why he wanted to. But he got as far as to reciting the Oath of Allegiance. And when they asked him to say something about God, his mouth caught fire.
Oh, that's right.
And he tried really hard. And that's probably my favorite episode. It is so funny. My second favorite episode is season 2, episode 4, The Curse. And it's where they get the email that's a chain letter. And they're just so absorbed with a chain letter. That one wasn't funny because they just obviously don't understand the internet. And then my third favorite episode is season 2, episode 10, where they actually go to the theater. They get invited to the special theater event. But that's not the favorite part. The favorite part is because Guillermo leaves. He's had enough of Nandor's shit. And he leaves. And the house is a mess.
Which I have to say, like, Laszlo's way harder to put up with than Nandor.
I think so too. So the guy who plays Laszlo is Matt Berry, and he was in the IT Crowd. And I love the IT Crowd. Hate Matt Berry's character in it. He was so annoying. And I was like, I'm kind of excited to see him, but I know how he acted in IT Crowd. And again, same thing, different story.
Yeah, and I think he plays a similar character in the show Toast of London, which is why I haven't seen it yet, because I can only take so much of that character.
Yes! Same. I was so glad that he came in on the very end of IT Crowd. I was like, I didn't have to deal with you for all these other seasons. Because there's so many other characters, I don't have to deal with him quite as much in Shadows, so...
But he's still Nadja's partner, so it's like,
I know. Nadja deserves better, okay?
Yeah, well, and she has better at some point.
Yeah. And of course, anything that Nadja does, I love, because I love her. She knows that she's the strongest out of these boys. She knows that she's better than all of them. I don't know that she says it, but we know that she's better than all of them.
Oh, yeah. She's also smarter than all of them.
Yeah. And there was one episode where she's like, we have ghosts in the house. I'm like, no. And she does a seance, and she pulls the ghost out. And then she does a second seance, and she pulls their ghosts.
Yeah.
Because they've been dead for so long. And their ghosts have unresolved issues.
Yeah, which I found really fascinating because I was like, what a weird way to think about the vampire personality.
Yeah.
That gets a whole nother being because the soul is not there.
Yeah.
Especially if you go by like Buffy rules.
Right.
You know? I was like, okay, so the spirit is the human spirit and the soul, but the thing that's going around acting is a husk that's being controlled by what? The vampirism virus or something?
I mean, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of. There was a teen series that I read. The author is L.J. Smith. And she is the author that wrote The Vampire Diaries too. And in this series, God, it's been so long since I read it. But in one of the books, a girl was being turned. And when she got the last load of like the guy's blood.
Sorry, that just sounded really weird.
Yeah, the vampire's blood. The last little bit of it. I said load, didn't I?
You said load. I'm 5. So I thought it was very funny.
I was like, why is she
laughing? It made
laughing?
me think of like True Blood. I was like, well, that got sexy fast.
When she got the last couple ounces because he gave them to her, and listen, there's no way I can say this is gonna sound
I mean,
PG.
it's all staying in. I just want you to know.
Yeah, okay. Whatever. His blood killed off all of her blood cells, and then they made it sound like a virus almost. Yeah. So that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, because it's almost like the human soul is remnant of it.
Yeah.
Is, left behind is the virus instead.
Yeah, because I remember they buried her, they went through the whole funeral thing, and then she woke up a couple days later and she was fully a vampire.
Interesting.
I mean, that's teen vampire lore for you. That was back in the 90s.
Well, I mean, True Blood was very similar to that though too, right? There was one time when the main guy, he's hurt so bad and she buries him.
Yeah.
And being in the soil helped him regenerate, and he came back out of the soil.
Yeah.
And then they had sex.
We need to explore the vampire lore a little bit. Because now I'm
I've got a book on it.
I'm like, no, how many do that? How many of them do that?
So Medusa's Gaze and Vampires Bite, we'll have to read and see.
As we digress again. This is why we need notes, because we keep digressing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wrote that I really liked, so this takes place after the movie, chronologically. And so they have this truce with the werewolves, but there was a reference that one of the werewolves made where they call out the Indians versus Native Americans, and that's a big topic for me. So I don't remember what episode it was, I just wrote it down and I loved it. So I just wanted to put it in the podcast.
I think my favorite callback to the show was during the Vampire Council. Because not only do they call back the movie, but they call to Blade and all these other vampire movies. And I was dude, it's freaking Blade!
That was so funny, right? All the celebrities were in this.
It was so good. That may be my absolute favorite
I completely forgot that, because I remember thinking they've got that person. Oh, wow. And then when Blade
Wesley Snipes came on.
Blade?
Because he was in the sunlight too in
that
scene.
And they kept his lore.
It was so good. I was this is so awesome.
Yeah, that was really good. Man, God. That was after...
It was towards the end of the first season.
This was after the Baron was killed. Yeah.
Okay, well, before we get into that, because that's a whole other thing. My favorite episodes are the witch's hat, which is made from the skin of a witch's butt, basically, and it's cursed, but Laszlo loves it. He absolutely has to have... He thinks for some reason it is the epitome of fashion, and he also beat the witch and he made a hat. It's a status symbol for him, but it's freaking cursed. It's he nearly damn near dies, and he winds up passing it on to some other vampire, and it curses him, but he still wants it back. I love that.
And they end up fighting over it.
Yeah. And not just why did you keep wanting to put the witch's butt on your head? And I love the whole witch's hat art, because every time it shows up, I feel Nadia's exhaustion and exasperation so personally, because I'm Laszlo, why? Just destroy it. Just burn it. Just destroy it.
And he doesn't believe in the curse either.
No, even when terrible things are happening to him. And he's it's not the hat's fault.
He's something else.
Oh my god. Oh my god. So the other favorite arc of mine is Nadia's old lover, Gregor, who keeps getting reincarnated. And they have this very intense animal magnetism. Yeah. And she meets him again and he's a parking garage attendant. The poor man keeps dying for her, too.
Yeah, because I knew you were going to talk about Gregor, so I was I'm not going to talk about Gregor. But when I went back and I read some of the episodes, descriptions, because it's been a while since we watched this show, y'all. And I didn't realize that Laszlo was the one who was killing Gregor in all the lifetimes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it said the Wikipedia that Laszlo was the one that was beheading him. And that in this one, when he was beheaded, it was from a piece of string that Laszlo had set up for his garden.
That's right! It makes me wonder if he beheaded him on purpose the other times.
I mean, I couldn't see Laszlo carrying that out year after century, right?
No.
So I think it was accidental.
Also, Laszlo and Nadia have a weird marriage partnership.
Yeah.
Because they have that one vampire that they both have sex with. And they were talking about, Nadia was oh, I'm really, worked up about this guy coming. And Laszlo's me too. Yeah. Oh, okay.
And they were it was animalistic.
So I don't see Laszlo actively going after someone she's sleeping with, because he seemed to be into it.
Right, yeah. He's all about the sex. But he's talking about his porno collection, because Laszlo made pornos and he made bad ones. Poor Nadia was having to watch them.
Oh my god.
So funny. And when they had their duets, when they were rediscovering their music career, oh my god.
That was so cringeworthy.
That was really cringeworthy because, like, these songs are not good, y'all.
No. And I felt so embarrassed for the actors.
Yeah.
Which, okay, the woman who plays Nadja, she plays in another show, and there's times then, too, that I feel really nervous and uncomfortable for her. She's really good at pulling that out of you. Try really hard not to hit 10-second skip on the...
Yeah, man, when they were singing in that karaoke bar, I was like, oh god. And I kept trying to focus on Colin Robinson, who was really enjoying it, because obviously Nadja and Laz are draining the people for him, so he doesn't have to do anything. But then it all ends well with Kokomo, because they all sing Kokomo, which is okay.
Speaking of Colin Robinson, my other favorite arc is him and the other energy vampire that winds up...
I think it was Evie? Yeah, Evie, because energy vampire.
She starts working at the same place, but she's so much better at it than him. And at first, he's really jealous, and he's trying to get her to leave or trying to find a way to kill her. And then they wind up being really intensely passionate, and so they wind up dating, but she's still better at it than him. She winds up draining him.
That was so funny. I loved their episode because they were just so funny.
Anytime they were at dinner together, taking turns draining the waiter. Yeah.
Another one that I liked is when Colin Robinson got promoted. And then he became really powerful off of draining people. And he, like, split himself into 3. And then he was draining himself. I was like, that's literally how it would work.
I know, I feel like Colin Robinson, his entire line is just to show toxic people.
Yeah.
Although with Evie, it was interesting because whenever you see Colin draining people, they seem so bored and like distraught that they got caught by him. But when Evie's draining people, they seem really enraptured by her. You know, like they're giving themselves to her. And I'm like, weird. Makes me wonder if she's better at it because she's just a better storyteller. Whereas Colin's whole energy thing is that he's just gonna bore you to death. Yeah. But Evie wants all of your sympathy and pity.
Right, yeah, because she wrapped a whole story and... Oh my god.
Her mom was always sick or something.
Yeah.
Her pets were always sick.
And she always had the worst luck.
Yeah, she was just better at it. I liked her.
I love this show.
Right. And now Guillermo.
Oh my gosh.
Because Guillermo, he's indirectly the reason that the Baron dies.
Yes. And his story arc was so funny.
So good.
So Guillermo is Nandor's familiar. And same thing with Jackie. He's been working for years doing the cleanups and running errands. And Nandor is so high maintenance. So
but he's worse than Deacon in that he never... Deacon at least tried to mind wipe her or whatever, but Nandor kind of gaslit him. Like he didn't deserve his thanks or his praise.
Yeah. As lovable as Nandor was, he was so mean at times.
Yeah.
So the Baron comes to town, the Baron tells them their whole thing should be planning on taking over the world.
And that they've been on Staten Island for however long. They immigrated pretty early in America.
Yeah. He's like, why haven't you taken over Staten Island? So that gets the ball rolling for them to want to take over Staten Island, right? And so one night the Baron's like, I want to go out and be amongst the people. And so they dress him up and they take him out. And I mean, clearly he's standing out like a sore thumb. But he goes out, he clubs, and he eats stuff and he throws up. And I think at one point they all get drunk, because if they drink off of drunk humans, they get that
that
feeling.
buzz.
So they're all buzzed in some sort of fashion. And I think they're at home when they're having the conversation, or are they out in the club when they're having the conversation?
Which conversation?
The conversation where they were planning to kill the Baron.
Right. I think they were at a club.
So they're talking about their plan is to kill the Baron. And when they come home, they accidentally slip it to the Baron. They had talked about killing him, but they had such a fun night.
Right.
Yeah.
They decided not to kill him anymore. They're like the Three Stooges.
Yeah. And so as they're like going home and they're like chilling out, the Baron's already pissed because he found out that they wanted to kill him. I think he's still down in the doorway. Morning has come. Guillermo opens the door to come in the house to help clean and kills the Baron. Accidentally.
Yeah, accidentally. He bursts into flames so fast and Guillermo was like, oh my god.
Yeah. What'd I do?
Had he gotten his DNA result back yet?
No, I don't think he got it back
yet. That was in season 2?
Mm-hmm. Because in season 2, they really develop his character. Because they do all of them. Mm-hmm. They do Nadja, Nandor, and Laszlo.
Right, because they find out they have a family member somewhere in Staten Island. happened.
Yeah. And then Nadja finds out that Nandor pillaged her village.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was it Laszlo who had? Someone had a family member. But the big reveal was that Guillermo was distantly related to Van Helsing.
He's so shook over it. So distraught.
And they develop him being a vampire hunter.
But like on accident.
Yeah.
Initially. He's definitely killing vampires on accident.
Yeah.
It's just now that it's unlocked or discovered in him, it's just all happening all the time. He joins, what was it, the Mosquito Club or something?
Yeah, the Mosquito.
Turns out it's a little like ragtag group of people who want to be vampire hunters.
Yeah.
And so now he's insinuated himself in it, not because he's a Van Helsing.
No.
But because he wants to protect the vampires.
Right. Quote unquote, right. Because he still kills a few vampires along the way.
Oh yeah, he slaughtered that house of vampires. Like the weird 60s Brady Bunch looking family. Slaughtered them. Because they went after the little ragtag group. Yeah.
And then at the end, when they're in the theater, kills all the vampires in the theater. They invited the trio to the theater under the guise of it being this once-a-year invitation. But really, it was a trial.
It was a trial that they'd basically already been found guilty for because of the death of the Baron and a few other things that they had kind of done. Because they're basically the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
They rarely do anything bad on purpose.
Yeah. And so Guillermo killed them all.
Killed the whole theater.
To save the three.
Yeah. And it was the one time Nandor actually sounded like he was grateful for him.
Yeah.
But kind of still in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Where I was like, you probably shouldn't tell that to the guy who's got the crossbow.
Right. Like, he could easily take you out, Nandor. Yeah. That just shows you how arrogant Nandor was.
Or dismissive.
Yeah, both.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did like finding out that he was the one who pillaged. Not just village.
That's just so bad.
That's pretty funny.
Which, speaking of Nadja, when she summoned her ghost and the ghost inhabited the doll, that was the freakiest thing I ever saw.
You know, at first it freaked me out, but then I was like, actually, that's kind of sweet because the doll was her friend and like
giving
gave her
advice.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I felt like the doll had ulterior motives because she definitely was bitter about being turned into a vampire. But I don't know, they felt like they were good friends.
At first I was like, oh no, no.
The doll definitely looked like her.
Yeah, the doll did look like her. And when it moved its little mouth, I was like, ooh. But it was so cute and so funny at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, and then Nadja's old, what was it? Someone she used to babysit or something?
And... the neighbors, when they went to the Super Bowl party.
Yep. Yeah, she wanted to turn the neighbor's wife because she felt bad for her.
Yeah.
Or that time that she turned that student.
Yes! The LARPer. Because she saw how she was being treated with all the other guys, and so she just turned her.
Nadia is definitely a feminist because she reminded me a lot of the Vengeance Demon from Buffy, the one that dated...
Xander.
Mm-hmm. So the Vengeance Demon that dated Xander, her backstory reminded me a lot of Nadia and her motives.
Yeah.
Nadia's the best.
Nadia is the best. I, through and through, loved her throughout the whole series. Loved Guillermo, loved Colin Robinson, loved Nandor, because Nandor was just so out there. Even Laszlo, I liked. One of my favorite story arcs of Laszlo was when he skipped town and he went to Pennsylvania because it sounded like Transylvania.
He's basically acting out the Roadhouse movie.
Yeah.
Thinks he's Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
That was really funny.
Yeah, that one was really funny. And you only knew it was not Laszlo because he had a toothpick in his mouth. I was like, yeah, that's a great disguise, bro. Really There's so many episodes. Like, we could talk for days, all the different episodes.
Yeah.
Because they were so funny.
And lots of the seasons had overreaching arcs that kind of... Like, the Witch's Hat came up more than once.
Yeah.
She thought it was destroyed. And then Laszlo finds it again.
Yeah.
And that club owner had it. Gregor's reoccurring. The fact that Guillermo is a Van Helsing and he's constantly trying to hide it. Colin Robinson.
Colin Robinson was...
Also, Colin Robinson sounds like such a boring name.
Oh my... It was one of the most boring names I ever heard. Cause I was like, Nandor, Nadja, Laszlo, Colin.
Yeah. I know. I was like, oh, that is absolutely an energy vampire.
Yeah. And his room was so boring. And he oh gosh, the episode with the orgy where he's like, maybe I can get someone to come in here so I can drain their energy. It's like, okay. It was such a funny show.
Oh, do you remember the episode? Because she was the familiar
who
who bragged about just being turned, but she wasn't actually turned. And when her master came back, she was in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Because she had all the other familiars doing her bidding. And she kept promising that I'm going to turn you into a vampire in 7 days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was probably the length of time her mask was supposed to be down, but she came back early.
Such a funny series.
Yeah, there's just no way that we could cover the whole show in an episode, plus the documentary, or mockumentary.
Yeah.
But I think we hit the highlights.
Yeah. Ooh, one of my other favorite parts, because I don't know why it's my favorite part, when they're out clubbing, they're going out walking, Nadja and Laszlo, and someone goes, "Go back to your country!" And I was like, that's rude. But like, they don't care.
In the mockumentary, they do something similar when they're going out to the clubs and they're dressed up all fancy or whatever, and someone goes, "Homos!"
Yeah.
Because I remember when I saw that, "Go back to your country," I was like, oh, so in America, it's the, xenophobia.
Yeah.
Whereas in New Zealand, it must be the homophobia.
Yeah. Okay. And they don't pay them any mind in their old Victorian clothes. But again, great show, full of laughs. Definitely would recommend if you need a break from dark horror.
Yes. I think the benefit here, too, to watching these is not just the psychological break, but all of the moments where they pay homage to old horror movies. And to see those little Easter eggs is part of the fun of watching it.
And also because we're about to cover something really dark.
Yeah. Yeah, the next episode, we're gearing up for kind of a Stephen King run, because we have a surprise for you.
Yeah.
You're not the one going, calm down.
I mean, I know, but the Stephen King part. I don't read him for a reason, y'all.
Yeah, I gotta say that, we'll get into it when we get it, but there were some issues.
But yeah, we'll see y'all next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast.
Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryontheleft.com.